Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Abigail Grace, and this month has flown by, honestly. I can't believe it feels like I was just filming a reading wrap up for July, and now it's August, or the end of August, and this weekend is going to be September. I'm shocked. But I've got my latte and I'm in my comfy clothes because even though it's warm outside, I'm drinking a hot coffee and in my sweatshirt because I had set the temperature cold, so it feels like fall. Because I just uploaded a fall book recommendations video and it's not really fall yet. Also, sorry about this lighting. I know this half of my face is definitely more lit. Let me see if I do this, it'll be better. Is that better? I don't know. Okay, well, let's get started talking about the books that I read this month. I did have a TBR, and I think I did okay reading the books that were on my TBR. So let's just get into it and talk about the books that I did read. These are not really in order of how I read them. These are just in order of how I picked them off my shelf. Should I do them in order? No. I'm going to talk about the book that has not left my mind, and that is Fourth Wing. This book everyone's talking about. I'm sure you've seen it everywhere for good reason. It literally, I finished it a week ago. I cannot get it out of my mind. I am constantly looking up and watching fan theories and things on TikTok and looking up fan art on Pinterest. It will not leave my mind. So I guess it's no surprise. This is a 5 stars. Honestly, this is a 6-star read for me. In comparison with a few of maybe I rated 1 or 2 other books this month 5 stars. This is far and away my favorite book that I read this month, and maybe this year. It was so good. If you don't really know the premise, basically Violet, she goes to War College where she is training to be a rider, so a dragon rider, and they go through all this training, and then you get bonded with a dragon, and when you bond with a dragon you get a signet, which is a special power that you wield because of your dragon. So Violet is at this war college, and her mom is very high up in the military. She's a general, and her mom has beef with this other kid who's at war college, Zayden and his family and Zayden's dad. So basically they are enemies, and he's brooding and mysterious and dark, and he has tattoos, and he's hot. And Violet is very weak, and she doesn't think that, no one thinks that she can do it, but she does. Anyway, it's very good. Truly, the next one comes out in November, and I thought it was going to be a duology. I was wrong. It's going to be 5 books. So now I have to wait years and years to find out how the story ends. That's why I'm reading Throne of Glass, because it's a completed series already. And I'm sick of starting series that aren't finished and then I have to wait. So that's my thoughts about that. I almost spilled coffee. This is 5 stars though. Rebecca Yarros, so good. I cannot wait for Iron Flame. Also, yes, I do not have the first edition. I don't have the sprayed edges. By the time I decided I wanted to read this, they were sold out everywhere. So and then I ordered it on Amazon and it took months to get here. So I do not have sprayed edges, but I do have, I mean, the next one, Iron Flame, has black edges, but it doesn't have the dragons on it. That's okay. I have been looking on Etsy to see if maybe it's worth investing in, like purchasing a original with sprayed edges, but they're selling them for so much money on there, so I'm not sure. But that's Fourth Wing. I did not film a video when I read that. I was just like reading it for fun. So I haven't talked about it at all on here. So I feel like I really needed to like go in on how I felt. The ending had me shook. And honestly, I don't know. I haven't been able to really talk about it with anyone. So this is me expressing my frustration. I have talked about it on TikTok though. So please follow me on TikTok, follow my bookstagram. They're always linked below because I talk about things more in real time. Next, I have the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. This is the second in the Friend Zone, like interconnected standalone series. Basically Sloane, she was in the first book. In the first book, her fiance dies, and this book follows her as she's like getting over her fiance and like falling in love again. The MMC, his name is Jason, and he's a musician. They meet because his dog gets out. He's like on tour. He's gonna be gone for 2 weeks. Someone's watching his dog, but his dog gets away, and Sloane finds it and like takes care of it while Jason is gone. And because of that, they start like talking, calling each other, texting each other, and that's kind of like their meet cute. Honestly, did I vlog this? I don't know. I did. This was in my followers choose which books I read, and I read this for that. And I talked about how at the end, I was like, honestly, this would be one of the few times where a third act breakup happens, and I felt like it was justified because of the issues that they were truly going through. So that has a lot to do with Abby Jimenez and the story that she wrote. I think she's a great author, and she has a few other books that I have not read that I'm excited to get to. Next, we have The Blonde Identity by Allie Carter. I also read this in that followers choose which books I read video. So this is Allie Carter, who wrote like The Gallagher Girls, which is like a YA spy school series, which I loved. I grew up reading, and this is her like first adult spy book. And basically the main character, she wakes up in Paris with no memory, and people are trying to kill her. So and she finds out that she has an identical twin who is a spy. And so she's kind of on the run because all these people think that she's her twin. And there's a man who is also a spy who helps her. And there's lots of twists and turns. It's very short. It was less than 300 pages. And it was really sweet. I realized I did not tell you what the Happy Ever After playlist was. I think I rated that one, I gave that one 3 stars. Yeah, 3.75. It was almost 4 stars, but it's not as good as some of the other books, some books that I give 4 stars, but I didn't feel like it was 3, so Happy Ever After playlist was 3.75. The Blonde Identity was 4.5. I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the nostalgia of reading an Allie Carter book as an adult. But it was definitely not 5 stars. I would say that 0.5 is the nostalgia. The 4 is actually the book. So this was good and an easy, fun read if you're looking for something that's like has some romance, but like also some fun twists because it's like a spy book. Next I'm going to group these two together because I read The Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass. which these are both on my TBR. And I'm currently reading Crown of Midnight, which is the third one, or the second one, if you just say Throne of Glass is first. But so 1, 2, and then I'm currently reading Crown of Midnight. The Assassin's Blade, to me, I did read it first, which I know there's some controversy about where you're supposed to read this book in the series, but I went with like just a pure, these are prequels to this and the whole series. People say you like the characters more and it hits harder, but honestly, this still hit hard. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but like when things happen in this, like in the last short story, I was like crying. This was 5 stars, even though I hadn't read any of these and I wasn't as connected to the characters. This was still 5 stars and I still really enjoyed these short stories. Like, honestly, I would recommend doing what I did and reading this first. Again, I can't say whether another way would be better because at this point I've already read this first. So it is what it is. But this was 5 stars. And it got me really excited for the series as a whole. And then I read Throne of Glass, which, if you don't know anything about Throne of Glass, the main character, I pronounce her name Selena. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct, but that's what I'm saying. She is an assassin, and she is basically starts out as a slave in these like salt mines, but the prince comes to get her and asks her to compete to be his champion in this competition that the king, his father, is holding to basically crown a king's champion, which is like basically the king's assassin. So she's competing with all these other like ne'er-do-wells. And she's the only woman, girl power, and to become the king's assassin. And that's kind of what unfolds. In this one, there's like the hint of like a love triangle that could happen. There's some romance, but if you've read any other Sarah J. Maas, from what I understand, the series starts out much more YA and gets a little bit more adulty, but this is definitely, I would say, classified as YA. But this one was 4 stars and The Assassin's Blade was 5. Next, we have an unfortunate end to the month, which was The Book Proposal by KJ Michie. This was one that people voted between on my followers choose video, and thank goodness, well, actually not thank goodness because I still read it, but people didn't choose it, so I didn't read it for that video, and I just read it for the end of the month because I was looking for something like light after I read Fourth Wing, because I was like, oh, I need to keep reading, otherwise I'm going to be in a slump. So I read this and it was not good. This was 2 stars for me. The premise is basically like the main character, Gracie, she is an author. She writes romance, and she gets in contact with her high school crush, and basically he starts helping her with book ideas by telling her about his like failed love life, and things kind of unfold from there. But it was just not good. Like, she sharded, which is really like something that I've just chosen to draw out and complain about in this book, but I didn't like it, and that's really all I'm going to say about it. So 2 stars. Dang. I'm getting coffee everywhere. Next, I have One Italian Summer by Rebecca Cirelli. This was also on my TBR, so I am glad that I read it and got it off my TBR because I've had this on my TBR for a while, and as you can tell, it's a summer book. And now that it's September, it doesn't really feel appropriate to be reading like summer books. So I read this. mostly because also it's very short. It's like 250 pages. And I was like, oh great, like it'll be kind of short and easy. And I was kind of expecting it to be more of a romance. It wasn't really. It was definitely like more, I would say, women's fiction, literary fiction. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think part of it is I thought, as much as she seemed to love her mother, I thought they had like a toxic relationship, and I really didn't like how she was like talking about her mother and her mother's relationship. Like it felt kind of like, I don't know, I didn't like it. And that's just me maybe coming from a place of coming from my own history. But I gave it 3.5 stars. Basically, the main character, her mom dies. That's not a spoiler. It's literally the very first page. And they were supposed to go on a trip to Italy together, and she still goes on the trip even though her mom is not with her, so she goes on the trip alone. But when she gets there, she like runs into her mom at 30, so she's like now on the trip with a younger version of her mom. So that's kind of what happens in this. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, her relationship with her mom wasn't my favorite. Some of the things that were like happening, I don't know. I'm like, am I supposed to find it believable that she's like living in the same time as her 30-year-old mom when she goes back to Italy? Like, is this a fantasy? What is happening? I get that there's supposed to be some like suspension of disbelief in this, but I couldn't really do it. So I've heard some good things. Some people love it. That author also wrote In 5 Years, which is really popular, and I haven't read. And I don't know if I will read it now that I've read that one. Sorry, I need to like wipe my nose. Yikes. Okay. I'm getting coffee on my book. On this book cover. Oh well. Next we have The Homewreckers by Mary Kay Andrews. This I read in my searching for a 5-star read video. So if you watched that, you know, this one was 3 stars for me. I have read a few Mary Kay Andrews books, and honestly, I would recommend this and any of her books to someone who's like, there's a little bit of romance, but mostly it's kind of like a mystery and like just women's fiction. And I think Mary Kay Andrews does like a good job of writing that like style. There's always kind of a mystery. There's always a little bit of a romance. And you kind of just know what to expect, and you can depend on it to be good. So that's kind of how I went into this. And again, it's a summary book, so I wanted to read it before it got to be fall. And the like subtitle down here is Love, Murder, and Faulty Wiring. Basically the premise is Hattie, the main character, she is on this like HGTV style like fixer-upper show, and while they're fixing up the house, they discover a body that has been missing and presumed dead for years, and it kind of sparks them being able to like solve this murder that happened like 15 years ago. So it was interesting, and I would say it wasn't amazing, but I also would recommend it to other people. So for that reason, I gave it 3 stars. And I've seen Destiny Sidwell talking about this recently, where she says like, since when did a 3-star rating become a bad rating? In my mind, 3 stars is in no way bad. In my mind, 3 stars is still, I would recommend it depending on what the person is looking for. Sometimes someone wants something like this and I will recommend it. Unlike a book that I give 2 stars where I'd be like, I actually wouldn't recommend that. A 3-star book I would recommend. A 4-star book I would say, yes, you definitely should read it, even if it's not exactly what you're looking for. 5-star is like, everyone has to read it. Even if you never read a fantasy book in your life, you need to read Fourth Ring. That's kind of how I talk about my ratings. Okay, and then, one second, let me grab these. Finally, we have the whole Entangled with Fae series. There are 5 books, and I did read all 5. They're on Kindle Unlimited. So I did read them on my Kindle, but I really wanted the physical books because I honestly think that the covers are like beautiful. But basically, the Entangled with Fae series, the whole series, is fairy tale retellings. So each book is a different fairy tale, and they are fairy tale retellings, but in like a fae world. So the first one, which is Curse of the Wolf King, is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and the beast is a fae whose Seelie form is a wolf, and so he can like go between the two. He has a curse just like the beast does, that like if he needs someone to like be willing to give up what they most treasure in order to break the curse for him. And Gemma, who is our beauty, is like helping him. I mean, you know how the fairy tale goes, so it feels stupid to like recount how the fairy tale goes, but there is like fae magic, so they can do magic. The fae can't lie. All the kind of things you would expect in like a fantasy, mixed with a retelling of a fairy tale, which I loved. So this was the first one that I read. I read this in my Finding 5-Star Reads video, and this was 5 stars. I really loved it. Obviously, honestly, when you're looking at these, I think on Kindle it says like in the store when you're about to like download it or whatever, it says like these books are interconnected, but you can 100% read them alone. I read them in order of when they were released, but you don't have to read them in any particular order. You can skip around. If there's like a fairy tale you don't really like, skip it and it does not matter, which I loved. I did read all of them in order, so that did not apply to me, but it could apply to you. So I read this one first, and Beauty and the Beast was 5 stars, A Curse of the Wolf King. Next was Heart of the Raven Prince, which is the Cinderella retelling, and I think this one was my favorite. It's also the longest, but this one felt like our Prince Charming character was actually a character that I liked, whereas in Cinderella, Prince Charming is just like ditzy, like, whereas Prince Franco, who is Prince Charming, was like such a good character and such a good person, and Ember and him, I just loved how they got together. So yeah, and basically I would call this, there's some fake dating in this. That feels weird. This was less similar to Cinderella than the first one was similar to Beauty and the Beast, just because I feel like, again, you don't see much of the relationship between Cinderella and Prince Charming like in the cartoon or in the traditional fairy tale, whereas this, we did get to see a lot of that relationship, which I loved. So this one was also 5 stars. And I think this was my favorite out of all of them. So if you're going to read one of them, I would recommend this one, Heart of the Raven Prince. Next, we have Kiss of the Selkie, which is the Little Mermaid retelling. This one was kind of fun. There was like a bridal competition, and it was like bachelorette style or bachelor style, basically similar to Little Mermaid. The main girl, Maisie, she rescues our man from the ocean and brings him to shore, saves his life. And when he gets to shore, he's basically needs protection from the church. There's this whole thing, and I don't really feel like I can get into it, but there was an uprising, and the humans and the Fae, like, there was a big war, and then, like, this one church started an uprising, and he, like, gets basically saved and has to have protection from this one particular church that has a lot of tension with the Fae. And obviously she is Fae. She's a Selkie. So Selkies can, like, are seals, and they, like, basically unzip their seal skin, and then they can come out and they're humans. So they don't shift like the normal Fae do in this series. But basically, there's like a bachelor type competition where Dorian, the man that she saves, needs to find a wife, and she has to be Fae. So anyway, Maisie makes a deal with the Sea Queen Ursula figure, and she has to compete in this competition, and basically she has deadly kisses where anyone she kisses is killed, and she has to compete and kiss Dorian to kill him. This one was good too. I would say this was 4 stars. At this point, I had read all 3 of these in a row, and I was kind of ready to read something else. So I took a break, read a few other books, and then I came back for the last 2 in the series, which were A Taste of Poison, the Snow White retelling, and A Dream So Wicked, the Sleeping Beauty retelling. So Snow White is one of my, she's not my favorite, like, princess or like fairy tale, so I knew this wasn't going to be my favorite book. This one was 3 stars. Again, I would recommend any of these in the series, but basically what's different about this is Snow White, Astrid, she has this like magical ability where she's a mirror. Like, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? She mirrors what people like the most about themselves when they look at her. So if you were to look at me, or vice versa, and you really liked your blonde hair, you would see me with blonde hair. But if you had brunette hair and you thought that was so beautiful, I would have brunette hair. So it's kind of like that, and it gets her into a lot of trouble. And basically the queen thinks that she has killed her father and sent the huntsman after her to bring the queen her heart. So that is kind of a breakdown of this. And finally, we have A Dream So Wicked, which was the Sleeping Beauty one. And this one was 100% like enemies to lovers, like to the max. Basically, it was giving Romeo and Juliet as well. So it's a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but also Romeo and Juliet intertwined with it. Brioni, that's what I'm going to say, Brioni Rose, she was raised in a convent. She had no idea who her parents were, but she finds out when she turns 20 that her family is like, her parents are the king and queen, and she had to be hidden because of this curse that was put on their family. But basically the curse happened because her family is in this feud with Thorn Blackwood's family, and Thorn Blackwood is the MMC. So their families are in a feud, and the curse was that the parents could curse the firstborn child of the other family. So she's the firstborn child of the other family, of one family, and Thorn is the firstborn child of the other family. So they each have a respective curse put on them. And also, if one family sheds the other family's blood, there's a sleeping curse put on them where they sleep for 100 years. Hence the like Sleeping Beauty thing. Sorry, I forget that my camera only can record for a 30-minute increment. At some point, the families are both put to sleep. I don't want to tell you how it happens because I don't want to spoil, but both families are asleep, and then Thorne and Brioni have to work together to wake up their families. So that is that. And those are all of the books that I read this month. I don't think I'm going to really include that much of a TBR at the end of this video. But I will say, as I mentioned when I was talking about Throne of Glass, I'm reading Crown of Midnight, and I have all of the Throne of Glass books, so I'm going to try and continue to work through those. On my radar for the month, I'm also going to be reading the new Percy Jackson book, which I don't have because it gets released in September. There will probably be a reading vlog of that, but that's on my TBR because I will 100% be reading that once it comes out. And I'm very excited about it. I'm planning to read quite a bit of fantasy because I've just been in a fantasy mood, and I want to like continue reading fantasy while I'm feeling it. So probably lots of Throne of Glass. I also have been meaning to read Mistborn, which is a Brandon Sanderson. Where is it? Here it is. Fantasy, which I'm very excited about. It is such a floppy paperback. I'm literally hyped for the floppiness of this. So I'm probably gonna read a few fantasies, so be on the lookout for a fantasy video coming. And I don't know, that's kind of all I have on my radar for the month. I'm sure things will come up and you'll find out what I read as the month continues. But like I said, follow me on TikTok, Instagram, where I will post live reactions and give you more like live details of what I'm reading. So thank you so much for watching this video. I always love just sitting down and talking about what I've read because my poor sister, who's my roommate, she hears me talk about these too much, and she is ready for me to just film this, spew to you guys so I can move on. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Mwah.